Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Overgivers Anonymous podcast. My name is Angela Mondor, and I'm also known as the Geeky Girl. And today I get to bring you somebody who's really, we've been in my life for a long time, so it's really cool that I get to bring you onto the Overgivers podcast. Misty Anderson is an energy and alignment coach, podcast host, and speaker who helps women reclaim their energy, confidence, and flow by working with their unique wiring instead of against it. After discovering the possibility of ADHD in her late 30s, amid major hormonal shifts, she realized the signs had always been there: daydreaming in class, forgotten assignments, difficulty fitting into rigid systems. Today, Misty weaves her lived experience as a neurodivergent woman with her experience in health embodiment and energy alignment to empower others to redefine success on their own terms through her coaching and her podcast. The Queen Rising, she gives women to move past burnout, release old stories, and build confidence by honoring their natural rhythms. I love it. I'm so excited. I can't wait to dive in because, of course, we talk about these things, and I myself had been diagnosed in my 30s with ADHD. So it's kind of an interesting flow of how us women sort of don't get diagnosed early on, right?
Right.
So what led to your diagnosis?
So I went down a path on TikTok and I seen some of my favorite creators talking about ADHD in women specifically. And it just triggered me like, could that be me? No way. And then I was also in the community, I was surrounded by neurodivergent women, coaches, entrepreneurs, and they were just like, yeah, of course you do. And so it was almost like this organic thing where, we always gravitate toward who we are, right? We attract who we are, we gravitate and we like people who are like us. So it wasn't a huge surprise that I was in this group and you were part of that, and like everyone around me were either, they were finding out they had ADHD, or they already knew they had ADHD, or they were finding out they were possibly autistic. And it was just like this light bulb moment of like, oh, wait a minute, I guess I kind of am, and I've been hiding it, and I've been trying to overcompensate it my whole life.
Right. Yeah. The ultimate masking, right? I mean, I think about some of the things you mentioned, like about, your daydreaming in class and, forgotten assignments and those kinds of things. Like I vividly remember sitting in class, staring out the window while the teacher was talking, and the teacher going, "Stop daydreaming, Angela." And I'm thinking, but I got to look at something else other than just your face while you're talking. Like, and of
Yeah.
course, now I understand that in my ADHD that, I mean, I'll have a TV show going, or I've got audio going in my ears while I'm working on something else. Like I just need multiple stimulus instead of just the
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was
Yeah.
a
And I
hardcore doodler.
remember even in high school, I had one of my first jobs. I had the time clock in my car set 10 minutes ahead of time so that I could be on time. And just even little things like that, where I had found workarounds to overcompensate my ADHD, because I was aware that I had this time blindness, and I was aware that I was chronically late. And my boss, I remember I would walk in, he would always point to his watch like, "Oh, you're 10 minutes behind." And so I was even like, I had fast forwarded the clock in my car 10 minutes ahead of time. So my mind, I could like trick myself.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, of course, now we know that that is coping mechanisms, right? But being late diagnosed, I think it's very different. Like, my daughter was diagnosed when she was, uh, I don't know, she was in high school at the time, but, and I was 30, so I could calculate the dates. I'm not going to, but, but like, she got diagnosed early enough that she didn't have to come up with all of those coping mechanisms, right? She then was diagnosed, and then we started to make things better for her in terms of how she was moving through the universe. Whereas us being later diagnosed, nobody did that for us. Nobody helped us with it. So we had no choice but to find ways to survive in this society.
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. And, I know that like there's different ways that people work with their ADHD. There's different stages. I mean, I would say that being late diagnosed with ADHD, it's almost like the stages of grief, right? Like you've got to go through this whole concept of everything I knew about myself and my life is different than what is true. And now I have to figure out how does that now fit with who I am?
Yeah.
I mean, women do that anyway in their 30s. We don't need also ADHD to
Yes,
turn
exactly.
into the pot. So when you were thinking about like, this, big changes and the things that went on for yourself during this time, how did you look upon your coping mechanisms then?
I just seen it as, wow, this has been present my whole life and no one ever picked up on it. My parents never picked up on it. And so I just seen it from a lens of compassion, compassion for myself, that for all the times I shamed myself for being late or having those missed assignments or not being able to stick to a task, and just being coming from it from a place of compassion of like, when you know better, you can do better.
Yes, I love that sentence. I say it a lot. Know better, do better. Yeah.
Yes. Because what you don't know, you don't know.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So how can you possibly think that you should have been better if you didn't know better?
Yeah. How can you be perfect in this normal, quote, normal world when you don't even know what that is, what that looks like?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And so now that you've had some time in yourself with your diagnosis, how have you allowed things to change in your world so that you are working more in alignment with your ADHD rather than against it?
Yeah, so I know there are certain things that I need on a regular basis as far as my self-care that keep me more focused and keep my ADHD kind of in check, where I'm not like doom scrolling and looking for that dopamine hit. Things like nutrition, making sure I'm getting enough protein, making sure I'm not overcompensating with like caffeine and sugar. There's just certain nutritional things that I need in my body. And I notice a difference when I'm eating well versus when I'm not eating well.
That's
Things
awesome. I
like,
know for me, sleep is really important.
yes, yes, sleep has been huge over the past few years. I've really had to get really much better at sleep and taking away those, distractions before bed, the blue light and all those things that help me get into a better restful state.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
know
And
for me, like back in 2020, I stopped with all the social media because it was just so hard, right? Especially with what was going on for us in that time. But I was like, instead of going to my phone, I'll pick up a book instead. And so I started reading, right? And now I read over 100 books a year. Like it's just part of my existence. But I also found that listening to stories before sleep would make my mind stop spiraling about all the things I was thinking about. So I
mm,
can't listen to like a book before sleep because I'll stay awake waiting to hear the book end, but like I can listen to those special like shorter stories for sleep because I know
oh,
it doesn't matter if they end. I'll come back to it again tomorrow.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, and exercise is also a big one for me. Being able to move my body, especially in the beginning parts of my day, it just does something for my focus. I'm not so like, and also it's that dopamine hit. I'm able to get that dopamine hit first thing in the day. So then I'm not looking for it in those other things like caffeine and sugar and scrolling on my phone.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you work this out, right? So people are going to ask these kinds of questions. Like, how did you get to the point where you realized, oh, what I eat makes a difference. Oh, moving my body made a difference. Like, how did you calculate that to be able to say, oh, that actually works for me versus, oh, I tried this other thing and it didn't work for me.
Yeah. So when I first started my business, I became an accidental entrepreneur. Actually, I was in home daycare provider. I was watching kids in my house. But then I went on a weight loss journey and I started paying attention to what I was eating. I was working out. I was dealing with a lot of emotional eating things. And so I had gone on this journey and lost a whole bunch of weight. And a lot of women came to me and wanted to know what I was doing. And that's kind of how I started into what I do now is, I just took myself on my own transformation journey and other people
Yeah.
wanted to know what I was doing. And then I was able to help them do it also. So I looked at where I was then and where I was in the height of recognizing my ADHD. And I thought, okay, what did I do then that I was so focused and I was able to hit my goals? I was so focused on my day. And so I started to kind of reverse engineer of like, what am I doing when I'm having a great day? And what am I doing when I'm having not such a great day?
Awesome. Yes, I love the reflection. Just such a beautiful thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so as you made changes and as you started to become aware of other pieces to this puzzle, did you continue your reflection then?
Yes, reflection is huge part of my weekly thing. I have a Sunday CEO date where I look back on the previous week and look at like, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, and what do I need more of like going into the next week?
That's awesome. I mean, I think that I talk about energy a lot in terms of not how many things do you have on your list, but how much energy does that list take up of yours. I think that, typical people, we talk about like the norms or, the neurotypical people and the productivity garbage that we get thrown all the time, right? Like make sure you have X amount of things on your list and you check these things off. But I think that are the typically, and obviously, we're neurodivergent for a reason because we are diverse in how things happen to us. But a lot of us struggle with the concept of one day I have this much energy to accomplish things, and the next day I might have this much energy, or I wake up with this much energy, but by the time lunch happens, I'm down to here. Some people call it spoon theory, right? There's all kinds of different ways to look at.
Yeah.
How has that impacted your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so I have noticed if I'm doing things that I love to do, I have more energy throughout the day versus if I'm doing things that are like draining my energy or not in my natural zone of genius, that drains my energy and I'll be exhausted throughout the day. And I really recognized this last year. So in my regular job, I work in accounting and tax. And
Okay.
I went back to work about 3 years ago for additional cash flow. And I didn't want to come into my business from a place of desperation, but rather inspiration. So I went back to work and I've been working for the same guy for like 3 years. Well, he sold the firm last December. So it changed hands. I have a new boss. And all of a sudden, I had way more on my plate than I ever had with him. He was like a one-man show, and I would go into work at 9 a.m. and he would have a whole list for me. Like, here, Misty, here's all the things we're going to get done today. Here's the order I want them done in. And I could just like
Wow.
go through and just do it versus her. She wasn't doing that. She was like, I was in charge of the project management. I was in charge of what clients came in today, what clients need to pick up their tax return today. So it was a whole different like management system, the kind of tasks I was doing. And it was like by the end of my day, I was so exhausted. And even though I wasn't working a ton of hours, I was just recognized like, this is not my zone of genius. I really
Yeah.
prefer, when I have a plan for the day, you just tell me what to do and I'm just going to go and do it versus
Right.
I have to figure it all out.
What a majorly difference, like it's a massive difference in terms of management style, right? And for you to
Yeah.
have to now adjust to that management style in like a blink of an eye, that's crazy.
Yeah, and there was also other team members, and I was considered the senior. So I was like having to delegate certain returns to other people and also like checking in with them. Where are you on this? Like, did you get this done? So it was just a completely different flow of energy. And I started to
Yes.
recognize like there are certain things I'm really good at, but there's certain things that are not in my zone of genius. And it takes a lot more energy from me.
Yeah.
And it's
And
not
that's a
that I
brilliant thing to understand because I think that, when we look at changing jobs or having new management come in or even the way things flow and change inside your business because of, external threats and opportunities that happen to be out there, these things will impact your energy levels and who you are and how you function because now you're having to adjust to those things. And some of us don't like to change. Some of us don't. I don't mind change. I'm okay with it, but some people don't like change. I mean, I don't like massive change, and I certainly don't like it if it's not on my own terms. So,
Yes.
when you have those things, now you've got this entire different
Mm.
swirl. So it's important to recognize those. And the way you just laid it out, I think that it's going to help people maybe see some of those patterns in their own lives too.
Yeah, and it was like it's not that I couldn't do those things because I
Right.
had the capability to do those things. However, again, like some things take less energy and some things take more energy. And those things are just a lot more taxing on my system.
100%. Yes. Well, and so what ended up happening with this role? What did you do? What transpired?
So currently still in the role, but I am transitioning out of it because, well, there's some things going on in that business. We've lost a lot of clients. The CPA is not communicating the way she should with clients, and there's been a lot of unhappy clients. So I am working on taking on my own accounting, bookkeeping clients so that I'm not reliant on a job and I can work in ways that are good for me and not necessarily just relying on somebody else. So,
So if you're looking at the way that things have been done with this person and the extra responsibilities that have been on your plate, are you also trying to see, okay, when I transition to my own, here's the way I'm going to handle all these situations so that I can work in my own brilliance?
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned over the years. And it certainly, was something that it was never taught, right? But to be able to say, okay, hold on a second. This part I can see is going to cause me some problems. How can I mitigate that? Or how can I work around it? Or because it still has to get done, right? Like you still have to communicate with the clients and you still have to do all these things that may not be in your wheelhouse. But what can you do in terms of shuffling things and making sure that it works for you? So what kind of ideas have you come up with?
Yeah. So originally, when I started to recognize this, I pulled back my hours. So I wasn't working as many hours. And what I started doing is prioritizing myself before I got to work. So that meant having a good breakfast before I got there, getting a cup of coffee in if I needed to, going to the gym before I clocked in. So I am filling my own tank and then everything else is getting the overflow. And this is something I've been teaching for years. So many women come to me because they don't have the energy and they can't figure out why they don't have time to go to the gym because of all these other things that they're doing. And I have always taught like you got to fill your own cup and then you have the energy for all your other responsibilities. But so many people are giving their most energy to everyone else, and then they're leaving themselves with what's ever left. And there's nothing left. By the end of the day, by 5, 6, 7 o'clock, there is nothing left. So if you can flip it and you put yourself at the top of your to-do list, you're taken care of. And then all your other things get like the leftovers.
Well, it's interesting because we aren't taught, and it's not just women, but mostly women are
Yeah.
taught in a very typically it's not actually like taught this is how you're supposed to behave. It's more like an impression of how we're supposed to behave. We're supposed to be, in the background, and we're not supposed to speak up for things, and we're supposed to be kind and pretty and is sensitive to everybody else's needs. And there's a lot of pressures from a society perspective. There isn't, but there are some times, there are some organizations that do actually teach women to behave that way. But so when we bring that piece forward and you try, people keep hearing, like these women keep hearing, put your face mask on first before you give it to somebody else, fill your own cup,
Yeah.
all these things. They are such foreign concepts to us because we're told that if we do that, then we're being bitchy or we're being rude or right. So how do you help somebody who is so, let's call it what it is, indoctrined by society or whatever organization they have to be involved with that have made them feel that way? How do you help them through that?
Yeah, there is so much to unpack here. You know, if we look at men and how they operate, they put themselves first always. They will absolutely give themselves breakfast before they get anyone else breakfast. They will go to the gym. They will make sure that they have time with their friends, or, their work is their priority. Like, they are just not programmed like women are, but women are
Right.
taught to sacrifice ourselves, and we have to be the support system for everyone else. And we have to be like this nurturing and this super feminine. And however, there is a part of the feminine that's not taught. And this is the other side of the feminine, is having boundaries, having standards, putting yourself first. And in the masculine feminine dynamic, the masculine is the givers and the women are the receivers. However, most women are not operating in that because they never felt safe to be the receivers.
Right. Yes. Yes. And it's amazing the difference between, and I've raised my girls from the beginning to not think this way, and yet there's still some residuals that get to them, which drives me insane because I think I've worked so hard, like my daughter, she'll say, "Oh, I don't know if I should apply for this job. I've got like these skills, but I'm not sure these." I'm like, apply to that job like you're a man. If you have 70% of those skills, you believe you should be hired. Like, apply
Absolutely.
like a man.
Yes.
It's weird though, right? Like, why? You're right. Men do, they will feed themselves first. They will care for themselves first. And we don't, I mean, yes, we do look at them and think, how selfish could you be? And maybe that's why we think, oh, I shouldn't be that selfish either.
Yes.
But you're right. It is a ton to unpack. But I think that, anybody who's listening here, if you are feeling like, I don't know if I ever could put my, fill my own cup first because I'm so busy looking at, if I don't, and I often talk about this even in my own world, like I feel like I'm the hub of the family and I've constantly got to be helping everybody, those kinds of things. And I appreciate I've put myself in that position. But if you're feeling that way, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about that, what do you think would be something that they could maybe reflect on?
Yeah, so I would have you reflect on, like, what is your energy drivers and what is your energy drainers? What gives you energy and what drains you? Because if you can start to pack into your day those things that give you energy. Like, I know being out in nature and being in the sunshine gives me energy. So it's one thing that I started doing, is like having a morning walk before I went to work every day. So I was getting that nature and that sunlight in. And it's not that much. Even 10 minutes outside is better than nothing. And even if it's something so tiny, so small, how can you fit that into your day? And it could just be like, you're going on your lunch break, and instead of sitting at your desk and eating lunch at your desk, you could just be going outside to eat your lunch and getting in, nature time, that sunlight, that fresh air breeze. And one thing about nature is it reminds us how abundant life is, because nature is ever changing. You look outside, you could be doomsday inside, but if you go outside, you can see there's green on the trees and the flowers are growing. And even as horrible as it seems our world is, one step outside and it could really just brighten your day.
Well, even if you're living in places like I live in Canada here, even in the dead of winter, and you go outside, the sparkle on the snow, like being able to see footprints from the animals that have been going through the snow through the evening or whatever. Even if you can't see growth, you can see the life that is still in the world. And I think
Yes.
that's, because it's a very different. I can't remember where you live, Misty. Where are you in the
I'm
States?
in Ohio, so we do have some
Okay, you have that too. Some a little bit.
winters. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's such a different thing. I mean, growing up on the prairies, we get tons of snow, and I love to see the way that the sun just sparkles off the snow. I just think it's, even in the the dead of winter when it's really really cold, there's a different sound as you walk across the snow. I think when you can take. I'm the same as you, Misty. I'd love to be outside. It does fill me up, but I do feel like sometimes I just feel so. And it's been more since I've had my injury, and my healing through this has been very heavy, right? It's been harder for me to go outside, even though I know it's good for me. Like my husband will say, "Come on, let's just go sit outside," And I just feel so downtrodden and heavy with this. And I think that there's people who are listening who feel the same way. Maybe they're ADHD or something else is going on in their life that's pulling them down that rabbit hole. And I often say to people, make sure you're surrounded by a community of people who support you. Find people, even if it's just one friend, that'll say, "Get
Yes.
your ass outside."
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, is there anything that you want that you're like, I really need to get this message out there? Something I have to say that I really think maybe we've missed.
Yeah, so one thing I like to do is customize things with the natal birth chart. So I am a life path astrology reader also. So if someone comes to me and they don't know what gives them energy, they don't know. And I do see that a lot of women, they come to me and they're like, I don't remember what hobbies I had because I've been so immersed in being a wife and being a mother that they don't even remember who they were before they had kids. We can look at your
100%.
natal birth chart and there are clues. There are certain placements we can look at, like, this is what fuels you. This is what fuels your soul. Here's, how you can incorporate some self-care based on your own natal birth chart. And I always say self-care is not just like bubble baths and spa days, because it's going to be different for all of us. If you're an Aries, a spa day is not going to be fueling for you. You want to need to be probably in the gym or rock climbing or, race car driving, something fast and something like that gets your adrenaline going, versus a Cancer is like, yeah, give me a cup of coffee and a good book in a room by myself, and that's all I need. So it is so unique to all of us. And so I would say if you are having struggle with finding things that really fuel you, you can look to your natal birth chart and start learning more about who you are. And maybe these are some of the times parts of yourself that you've hidden.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think it's interesting, like, and the whole concept of giving people like pebbles, or like, think about Hansel and Gretel with the cookie crumbs, you know what I mean? Like giving somebody like a trail back to some sort of answer, because it is true. Like when you're a wife and you're a mom and that is your existence, you literally spend so much time of that existence just thinking about them, that you've forgotten who you are. Or maybe, I mean, I was young when I started my family. I mean, I didn't really make much of myself before I became a mom and a wife,
Yes.
right? So coming into our own, right? And sometimes, like we said in the very beginning, coming into your own in your 30s, but also coming into ADHD in your 30s, it's, and sometimes it takes reflection to be able to say, oh, this is what I need, or I don't feel fulfilled unless, right? I didn't realize how much of a maker I was until my concussion and this injury that I'm under.
Mm.
I I had to create something that had an outcome. I have to create outcomes. So I'm
Love
crocheting like a
that.
mad woman now because I can't a whole bunch of things, but I can sit there and crochet and I make things.
Yeah. And you can also look to who you were as a child. Like, what were those childhood hobbies that you would like just get lost in? Because who you were before the age of 5 is who you truly are. And then after the age of 5, you start to pick up other people's, like subconsciously, you'll pick up other people's fears and habits, and you'll start to absorb some of that. So if you look at some of the things that you like to do early on in your childhood, and like, where did you just get lost? Like, I remember just being outside. My mom was like, go outside. I don't want to see you back here until lunchtime. So I would just get lost in the wildflowers, and we lived out in the country, and I would just like be picking flowers and things. And I had to remember that about myself, where I like to just get lost in nature, and like there's no outcome, there's nowhere where I need to be, and there's no time limit.
And I would say for those of us who had very interesting childhoods, working on some inner child work is really important,
Mm,
right? Going through, I
yes.
remember the first time I did some inner child work and I thought, oh, this is just garbage. And it was the most amazing experience to actually sit with my inner child and say, you know what? I'm here for you. I'm your protector. I'll look after you. You're safe here. To And it sounded at the time, I thought, this is the dumbest, hokiest crap I've ever had to ever endure in my life. But it was really amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So I think that, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, right, who can remember their childhood? It sucks so bad. Then inner child work might be a good place to start.
Yes, yes, for sure.
I love the fact that you have a tool that will help people sort of dig through and give them at least some stepping stones to work towards finding out who their authentic self is, to find out who they
Yeah,
are. I think that, can be so helpful for so many because a lot of us are out here going, a fish out of water. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. It's absolutely amazing. I think anything that can help somebody to really hone in on what drives them, what gives them energy, it is something that is truly important to us, especially as neurodivergents. We need to understand what gives us the energy to continue. It can be very, like I call it, heavy. It can be very draining if we don't know how to fill our own cups.
Yeah, and I think as someone with ADHD and neurodivergent, you need to have those outlets that doesn't have anything to do with your work.
Yes.
We need to have those things that kind of allow us to take us into another world, because daydreaming is like natural for us. And so if you could just allow yourself to go there and allow yourself to get lost in, whether that be a book or a puzzle or an art project or like whatever that might be for you. But I think as someone with ADHD, we do well with having other interests other than just what we're working on or our business or our job.
But I think that we've spent so much time, whether you've been diagnosed early or you've been diagnosed late, this doesn't seem to matter in terms of what I've seen, but we spend so much time as we come up through the years of our childhood and adolescence of trying to just be good enough so that we are passing people's tests, so that we are accomplishing that in which people expect of us, that we become so tied to the outcomes of our job, which of course, when we're young at school, that's our job, and then being tied to making sure that our bosses like us enough, that our spouses like us enough, that our parents like us enough. We're so busy with this whole making sure that everybody else is liking us that our identity becomes so closely tied to what can I provide for other people? How can I be valuable to other people? Which tends to lean us towards being really, really tied to our work. Whereas the other daydreaming, and of course, air quotes for those of you who are listening here, like those kinds of things are looked upon as frivolous, or they're looked upon as things that are not productive in our current society. But what we don't currently understand, or what we don't understand, especially when we're early in this journey of awakening through this is that these are the things that fuel us. And if we don't have those things, then we can't
Mhm.
possibly be the best that we can be.
Yeah, and one of the beautiful things about ADHD is our creative brain.
Yes.
And we're able to think outside the box. We're able to look at, come up with alternative, solutions. And that is a beautiful part of ADHD. But it's sometimes we mask it because it's not celebrated in the, typical society.
Yes. Well, and I used to think I'm not creative because I can't
Mhm.
draw a picture the way another person can draw a picture, or I'm not creative because I can't paint the way another person paints. It came to me later to understand that my creativity is in how I think. My creativity is understanding that the world exists in a different way than some other people might see that particular world, right? And through that understanding of creativity, then I could understand, oh, I am creative in my way. I do like pottery and I like to, make things with clay. And of course, now with the crocheting and those kinds of things, just because I can't draw the way some people can or paint the way, it doesn't mean to say I'm not creative. I just have a different kind of creative.
Yeah, I was the same way. I used to think I'm not creative because I'm not an artist. I can't draw
Yes.
or paint, but I've recognized that my creativity is differently like you. I infuse it more in business.
Yes. But I think it's really important, like you said, to try and not get so connected to our work because if we make that who we are, if that becomes your whole existence, if something happens like what happened with you, where you get this new management comes in and now all of a sudden you're unsettled in that position, and that if that's your identity, then you're unsettled. It's not just, oh, the job really sucks right now. It's like me as a human being, I suck because somehow I can no longer perform the way I used to.
Right.
Yeah. So such a good division in the sand, those boundaries, right? To be
Yes.
able to say, I am not who I am not what I work. Like I am not,
Right.
just because I can make things with wood doesn't mean to say I am a whole being of carpentry. That's just a piece of me.
Right. And I think we really have to find our self worth outside of what we do. And it's more in who you are.
Yes. Awesome. I think that's beautiful. I appreciate you being here and to share all these beautiful bits of wisdom with us. Of course,
Mhm.
the show notes will have all of your links so that people can find you on social media. Do you have something that you're going to give us as a link for like this? Do you have something to offer people? Like, where do you want people to go?
Yeah, I do have a 3-part mini course on the burnout breakthrough method where I
Lovely.
walk you through that. And it's a 3-part system that I realize what I've done to break through my own burnout, not once, but twice. And so I will leave the link. You can leave the link for that.
Awesome. That's absolutely wonderful. I appreciate you being here, Misty. And it's been amazing for us to reconnect after all this time because, of course, we've known each other for a very long time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you and have yourself an amazing day. Thank you so much for listening to the Overgivers Anonymous podcast. Your support means the world to me. You can find show notes for this episode and other goodies at overgiversanonymous.ca. And if you enjoyed this episode or you enjoyed the podcast in general, why not join us in the Overgivers Anonymous Facebook group, where you can connect with overgivers from all over the world. Head on over to geekygirl.ca/group.